Hello and namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Venezuela's opposition leader Maria Corina Machado hails Donald Trump's capture of Nicolas Maduro as a huge step for humanity in her first comments after the military action. Vows to return home as soon as possible. Leaders of France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, Britain and Denmark issue a joint statement saying Greenland belongs to its people and only Denmark and Greenland can decide on their relations. Swiss local authorities admit that fire safety inspections had not been carried out for the last 5 years at the bar where 40 people were killed in a New Year inferno. And Volodymyr Zelensky meets his French counterpart Macron at the Elysee Palace in Paris ahead of the coalition of the willing nations' talks to finalize security guarantees for Kyiv. Venezuelan opposition leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado on Monday said that she will be returning to Venezuela soon. In her first public comment since a social media post over the weekend, when the US military captured Nicolas Maduro, the Nobel Peace Prize winner vowed to return to her country as soon as possible. She welcomed the US actions as a huge step for humanity, for freedom and human dignity. Speaking to Fox News, Machado openly rejected the country's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, saying she is one of the main architects of torture, persecution, corruption, narco-trafficking. Machado also vowed to turn Venezuela into the energy hub of the Americas and promised to bring millions of Venezuelans back home who have been forced to flee the country. Colombia on Tuesday affirmed its commitment to collaborating with the United States in the fight against drug trafficking, using American intelligence and technology to enhance efforts. Colombia's Interior Minister Armando Benedetti, in a video along with Justice Minister Andres Idraga, said that Bogota's anti-drug operations would target drug laboratories, criminal organizations and their camps.
The Colombian government, through the Interior Ministry and Justice Ministry, informs the United States government, through one of their intelligence agencies, that we will continue coordinating and cooperating in the fight against drug trafficking, based on intelligence and their technology to destroy laboratories and criminal structure and their camps.
The fight against drug trafficking must continue to be waged jointly with technology, with all the advances in cooperation that the US government can give us. We will continue to emphasize the fight against this scourge, particularly on the Colombian-Venezuelan border. The purpose is to continue walking hand in hand against this scourge that causes so much damage to both countries.
The ousted Venezuelan leader and his wife pleaded not guilty to drug and weapons charges in a New York courtroom. The appearance comes 2 days after the United States captured Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores in a military attack. Meanwhile, Delcy Rodriguez has been sworn in as Venezuela's president. Take a look.
Ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro made his first U.S. court appearance in New York, pleading not guilty to federal charges. He also insisted he's still in charge as Venezuela's president. Maduro's wife, Celia Flores, also pleaded not guilty to charges in the same hearing. Maduro is facing charges of narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, and weapon charges. The judge ordered both to remain behind bars and set a new hearing date of March 17th. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio briefed members of Congress regarding the U.S. military intervention in Venezuela, prompting a divided response from lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer criticized the administration's plans, calling them vague and unsatisfying.
Well, this briefing, while very extensive and long, posed far more questions than it ever answered. Their plan for the U.S. running Venezuela is vague, based on wishful thinking, and unsatisfying.
The U.S. military operation in Venezuela was a decisive and justified action. Nicolas Maduro is responsible for the deaths of untold thousands of Americans after years of trafficking illegal drugs and violent cartel members into our country.
House Speaker Mike Johnson defended the operation, citing the detention of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro as a victory. U.S. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said the Trump administration was misleading Americans by portraying the operation as a counter-narcotics or law enforcement action. Venezuelan's parliament swore in Delcy Rodriguez as interim president 2 days after U.S. forces seized her predecessor, Nicolas Maduro. Following the swearing ceremony of interim leader Delcy Rodriguez, thousands of protesters gathered demanding the release of ousted leader Nicolas Maduro. To discuss the U.S. operation in Venezuela and the capture of President Nicolas Maduro, the United Nations Security Council held a meeting in New York. During the meet, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for respect of nations' political independence following a U.S. military operation in Venezuela. At the emergency UNSC meeting, the United States rejected accusations of aggression against Venezuela, saying the operation was a law enforcement action tied to long-standing criminal charges. While Venezuela's UN ambassador Samuel Moncada said international norms were at risk and also urged the Security Council to demand that Washington release Maduro and his wife. In a series of shock announcements over the weekend, Trump then declared that the United States was in charge and intends to take control of Venezuela's huge but decrepit oil industry. President Trump also dismissed the idea of Venezuela having new elections in the next month. Bureau Report, DD India.
And the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, that's the OHCHR, has expressed concern over the situation in Venezuela, saying the global community must make clear that U.S. intervention in Venezuela is a violation of international law that makes the world less safe. Chief spokesperson of the OHCHR, Rabina Shamdasani, told reporters that the future of Venezuela must be determined by its people alone.
We are deeply worried about the situation in Venezuela following the U.S. military operation over the weekend. It is clear that the operation undermined a fundamental principle of international law, that states must not threaten or use force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. The U.S. has justified its intervention on the grounds of the Venezuelan government's long-standing and appalling human rights record. But accountability for human rights violations cannot be achieved by unilateral military intervention in violation of international law. The people of Venezuela deserve accountability through a fair, victim-centered process.
And leaders from France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, Britain and Denmark issued a joint statement on Tuesday reaffirming that Greenland belongs to its people and that only Denmark and Greenland can decide on matters concerning their relations. The declaration comes in response to renewed interest expressed by U.S. President Donald Trump in acquiring the autonomous Arctic territory. The leaders highlighted that security in the Arctic must be achieved collectively in close cooperation with NATO allies, including the United States. They further stressed the importance of upholding the principles of United Nations Charter, including sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the inviolability of borders. And French President Emmanuel Macron and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky have held talks ahead of a coalition of the winning summit in Paris. According to a draft statement prepared ahead of the summit, Ukraine's allies are set to agree that security guarantees must include binding commitments to support Kyiv in the event of any future armed attack by Russia. Meanwhile, U.S. President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner arrived earlier at the Elysee Palace. Both are expected to meet President Zelensky separately later in the evening. Now, more than 30 farmers from the CR Farmers Union in Lot-et-Garonne, southwestern France, set off for Paris in their tractors. French farmers are upset with the government for several reasons. They're unhappy about how officials are dealing with a cattle disease called lumpy skin disease. Farmers are also struggling because wheat prices are very low. Fertilizer is very expensive, and they fear more competition from cheap farm products coming from Latin American countries. About 50 farmers from a group called Coordination Rurale showed their anger by blocking part of the A84 highway in northwestern France in the Manche area. They set large fires using old tires and branches to get attention. The head of the local farmers group, Yannick Baudin, said politicians are not helping farmers at all. He added that the farmers plan to stay there until the police or riot officers force them to leave. French Agricultural Union Coordination Rural says it will take farmers' demands to Paris, whatever the cost.
We are not making enough progress on CND. We want the total slaughter of herds to stop. We want vaccination to spread as quickly as possible so that we, the farmers, at least the farmers, no longer need to slaughter our herds. And here we come up against a wall, but a wall, a real wall. So you know, at Coordination Rural, we are stubborn and we will not give up on our demands.
An update on the Swiss fire tragedy now. Swiss local authorities admitted on Tuesday that fire safety inspections had not been carried out for the past 5 years at a bar where 40 people died and dozens were injured in a New Year blaze. 5 days after the disaster, Crans-Montana Mayor Nicolas Ferraud said that periodic inspections were not conducted between 2020 and 2025, adding that he deeply regrets it. He further added that the soundproof foam on its ceiling was considered acceptable at the time, and a fire alarm was not required due to the bar's size, while sparkler candles have now been banned inside town's venues. The authorities have said they believe the fire started when people celebrating New Year raised champagne bottles with sparklers attached, setting light to sound insulation foam on the ceiling of the bar's basement.
Periodic inspections were not carried out between 2020 and 2025. The municipal council became aware of the situation after reviewing the documents submitted to the public prosecutor's office last weekend. We deeply regret this.
Now, despite the German economy struggling to get out of its weakness for several years, not all Germans are doing that badly. Wealth is up, according to a new statistic. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me now from Berlin to talk about it. Good evening, Lars. What can you tell us about these developments?
Thanks for having me. Yes, indeed, it might sound a bit surprising. We've seen 3 years of an economy between recession and stagnation. We've hardly seen any growth, and yet wealth is up. And the headline number is something to behold. Germans have a private wealth of more than 10 trillion euros. If you want to write that down, that's a 1 followed by 13 zeros. And that's the private wealth held by German households. It has grown steadily over the years, even through the last 3 years that have been economically challenging. This past year, it has apparently grown by around 6%. That is according to the DZ Bank, the bank that's been keeping track of that number for decades. The economists there also think that the trend will remain intact in 2026. They're expecting wealth to grow by another 5%.
But Lars, where exactly is that growth coming from when the economy isn't doing all that well?
That's a great question, because we're dealing with a very German phenomenon here. Germans are very fiscally conservative. They put a lot of money aside. Their savings rate stands at 10.3%, which means for every 100 euros they have, they put just over 10%, 10 euro into their savings account. Seen on a monthly basis, that means that 270 euros are being put into every German household's account. Well, obviously, that's on average. So this savings rate is a lot higher than in other countries. But as great as that sounds, it's not only positive, because many Germans apparently park their money in savings accounts with very little interest. So while money accumulates there, it doesn't grow, and that is very different in some other countries, like the United States, for example, where a lot more money is actively invested, and while that is more risky, it also allows for more growth.
Okay, interesting. But clearly, if this money was used to fund businesses invest, then well, it'll be risky, but it could multiply even more, adding to overall wealth of all Germans. Thanks for joining us for the moment. Now, flash floods in Indonesia have claimed over a dozen lives as part of the country facing heavy rains, this time in North Sulawesi. DD India's Chandi Vasandani in Jakarta shares the latest on this scenario. Now, Chandi, Hi, can you tell us the latest situation on the ground in North Sulawesi and what we know so far about all the casualties?
Reports have said that 16 people have been confirmed dead after flash floods swept through the island of Siau in North Sulawesi after heavy rain early on Monday. Local authorities have said that rescue personnel have been deployed to search for 3 people who are still missing. And so far, 18 people have been reported injured. Now, the search and evacuation effort is hampered by many roads that are still blocked by debris, mud, and big rocks. So this is really slowing down the search and evacuation effort. More than 200 police personnel have been deployed to help with the evacuation of local residents, distributing aid, and setting up health services.
All right, Chandni. And what impact have the floods had on residents, and are there concerns about further flooding in the coming days?
The impact is quite significant. More than 600 local residents have been evacuated to temporary shelters in local schools and churches. And we have also seen the devastating images of destroyed homes and government buildings, and the damage is quite extensive. And heavy machinery such as excavators have been deployed to clear at least some of the main roads. Now, authorities are saying that the risk is not over. These floods have occurred at the peak of the wet season in Sulawesi, and there is a forecast of continued rains in Sulawesi and throughout Indonesia in the month of January and February. So there is a lot of concern about more floods and more heavy rains.
Well, let's hope that people remain safer. Thanks a lot for joining us. For the moment, Chandni. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Attacks against minorities remain unabated in Bangladesh. A Hindu man is shot dead and a Hindu woman is allegedly gang raped. And football club Chelsea appoints Liam Rosnier as their new head coach in the middle of the English Premier League season.
This week on Defence Dynamics, India is reshaping its military structure with Bhaira formations. What are ramjet-powered artillery shells? And how India's rocket punch gets an emergency boost with Suryastra. As Europe and Israel turn to India for industrial depth, my take explains the why. Watch Defence Dynamics this Wednesday at 8 p.m. IST only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, in Bangladesh, a 40-year-old Hindu man, owner of a grocery shop, has been murdered after unidentified attackers struck him with a sharp weapon in Narsingdi city. The murder of grocery trader Moni Chakrabarti has increased fear and anger across Bangladesh. Moni's death has come amid a worrying series of killings of people belonging to the Hindu community in recent weeks. Chakrabarti's killing raises serious concerns about public safety, minority protection, law and order ahead of elections. According to Palash police station officials, Chakrabarti was attacked and killed in Charsindur Bazar in Palash Upazila on Monday. Police and locals said Moni was returning home after closing his shop when unknown attackers struck him with a sharp, locally made weapon. He was rushed to the nearby hospital where doctors declared him dead. And fear has grown further after another incident took place on the 5th of this month when Hindu businessman and journalist Rana Pratap was shot dead in public at Kupalia Bazar in Jashore. Moni and Rana's killings have come while the country is still shaken by 2 other brutal incidents. On the 18th of December, Deepu Chandra Das, a garment worker in Maiman Singh, was beaten to death over blasphemy allegations. His body was later tied to a tree and burnt. Deepu had been working as a garment factory for 2 years. Less than 2 weeks later, on the 31st of December, businessman Khokon Chandra Das was also stabbed and set on fire in Shariatpur. He died 3 days later while receiving treatment in Dhaka. And a reprehensible crime against a Hindu woman has also come to light in Bangladesh again. A Hindu woman has alleged that she was gang raped, tied to a tree and brutally tortured in Kaliganj Upazila of Jheneda district on Monday. Officials said the incident took place on the 31st of December, but the complaint was filed later as the victim was undergoing treatment in hospital. The woman was rescued in a critically injured condition and admitted. One accused has been arrested and the police are continuing with the probe. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar met the Prime Minister of Luxembourg, Luc Frieden, on Tuesday. During the meeting, Dr. Jaishankar conveyed the warm greetings of Prime Minister Modi. The two leaders discussed the growing cooperation between India and Luxembourg in areas such as financial services, investments, technology and innovation. Dr. Jaishankar praised Luxembourg's role in strengthening India-EU relations. During his visit, the External Affairs Minister will also engage with senior leadership of Luxembourg and interact with members of the Indian community in the country. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will pay an official visit to India on the 12th and 13th of this month. India's External Affairs Ministry, in a statement, informed that at the invitation of Prime Minister Modi, the German Chancellor will pay a two-day visit to India. This will be Chancellor Merz's first official visit to India. On the visit, he will be travelling to Ahmedabad and Bengaluru. The Prime Minister will receive Chancellor Merz on the 12th of January in Ahmedabad. The two leaders will take stock of the progress made in diverse aspects of India-Germany strategic partnership, which completed 25 years in 2025. The discussion will also focus on further intensifying cooperation in trade and investment, technology, education, defense and security and people-to-people relations. Prime Minister Modi and Chancellor Merz will also engage with business and industry leaders and exchange views on issues of regional and global importance. The visit will provide a valuable opportunity to reaffirm the shared vision of India and Germany focused on building a forward-looking partnership. And Prime Minister Modi has lauded the successful commissioning of the Hindustan Petroleum Corporation Limited's residue upgradation facility at the Visakhapatnam refinery in Andhra Pradesh. PM Modi called it a decisive leap in Bharat's journey towards energy security and self-reliance. The PM said that state-of-the-art facility adds momentum to the nation's efforts to boost energy independence, aligning with the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. India's Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnav, addressed Regional AI Impact Summit 2026 in Western Indian city of Jaipur on Tuesday. Speaking on the occasion, the minister highlighted the importance of AI in our day-to-day lives.
AI को अच्छे से भारत में डेवलप करने के लिए, हमारे नागरिकों के उपयोग में लाने के लिए माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने बहुत एक क्लियर विजन हम सबके सामने रखा। उसका पहला प्रिंसिपल है टेक्नोलॉजी को डेमोक्रेटाइज करना, यानी हर एक व्यक्ति को टेक्नोलॉजी की उपलब्धता हो, भारत में टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप हो सके, आत्मनिर्भर भारत के टेक्नोलॉजी के गोल्स हम पूरे कर सके। इस पूरे प्रेरणादायी विजन को लेकर एआई मिशन ने और मंत्रालय ने कई अच्छे एक्सपर्ट्स के साथ बातचीत करने के बाद में एआई मिशन की रचना की थी।
Some sports news now, and Chelsea has confirmed that French club Racing Strasbourg's English coach Liam Rossinier will take over as new manager role in the club. Rossinier, who led Strasbourg to European qualification in this first season, replaces Enzo Maresca, who left the club on New Year's Day. Rossinier, who has represented England at the under-20 and under-21 levels, began his managerial career with an interim job at Derby County in 2022. He was then appointed full-time manager with Hull City in the EFL Championship. He was sacked in 2024 after failing to secure a playoff spot. In cricket, dominant Australia ended day 3 of the 5th Ashes Test against England at 518 for 7, taking a formidable lead of 134 runs. After Travis Head's mammoth 163, Australia's skipper Steve Smith continued his team's charge with a blazing 100 at the SCG. Opening the innings, Head produced a splendid knock, looking set to complete a double ton before Jacob Bethel got him out. Master Shane, who accompanied Head at the start of play, was dismissed just 2 runs shy of his half-century. Earlier in the day, England were all out for 384, with Joe Root scoring his 41st Test century. For Australia, pacer Michael Nessa took a 4-wicket haul, while Mitchell Starc and Scott Boland took 2 wickets each. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India Live. For all the latest, keep watching DD India. But before we go, we'll leave you with the stunning images from Ahmedabad, where the city is in full bloom, celebrating flowers, culture and national pride with the inauguration of the International Flower Show 2026 at the iconic Sabarmati riverfront. Enjoy.